have to imagine COVID and everything that, like, is the industry still sort of coming out of that as workers left the office? Like, did that have a big impact, or, what sort of role did that play in all of this for the commercial industry?
It's interesting you mentioned that. Everybody adopted our technology. And the factors of people going away and being remote and hybrid workplace, they're all factors that are important. I don't think we truly know the impact.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. Recently on LinkedIn, I shared a post that, looking back on it, I kind of wrote the intro to this podcast episode without really thinking about it. And that post was highlighting some news that was shared out of our Ellipsys Commercial Technology Group by Commercial Integrator, a publication that serves the commercial integration industry. And the news that they were sharing from Ellipsys had to do with it was kind of a recap post, right? Looking back over the past year of how Ellipsys has grown on the vendor and member side, and just the programs that were being introduced, and just a chance to take the past year and just highlight the work of that organization. And the post I shared had to do really with more highlighting the person behind all of that work, because it's been really an inspiring and exciting time within Nationwide Marketing Group, and specifically our Custom Integration Network. And Ellipsys, and Chris Whitley, the guy that is the executive director of Ellipsys, just watching him go to work on a daily basis, and just the just groundswell of excitement and anticipation he's built around Ellipsys over the past year, and now really as it enters year two, watching it, all of that momentum just continue to roll and the group continue to grow, and the work he's done. Clearly a guy that knows he's been around the block in this industry, and he's leaning on those connections to, help Ellipsys grow, but in turn help the members of that organization, improve their business. Had an opportunity while we were together at Primetime in Las Vegas to sit down with Chris and talk about the direction the organization has taken and how he's gone about approaching his work, building a new organization literally from scratch. Really unique opportunity, and one that I think comes at a unique moment in time for Ellipsys as it gets ready to head into year two here, and just continue that momentum. So excited to be able to share that conversation with you here now, and let's dive into it. So this is Chris Whitley, Executive Director of Ellipsys, here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and I am thrilled, honored, and probably obliged, I think, this show to be sitting down with Mr. Chris Whitley, our Executive Director of the Ellipsys Commercial Technology Group. Am I? Is this I'm not being coerced necessarily, but like this setup, this is your doing, man.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, actually, it's
give the shout out where it's due.
Good friend Rick Renner at Shure, donated this equipment for us. It's great setup, and we sound great, don't we? We
do. I thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Rick. Too.
Rick. Thank you, Chris and Rick. Well, dive into it. So I know we've got a lot to dive into on the commercial side. We're about a year into your efforts here at Nationwide and with Ellipsys, and for those that haven't seen, we'll throw a link in the description to our first interview not too long after you started, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it was a couple months, I think.
So if they're too lazy to go watch the video, we'll do it anyway, right? What's that elevator pitch on Ellipsys for those not familiar?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of three major principles to the group. Yeah. And I'll talk about kind of how we do it. There's people, process, and partnerships. And so the first thing is we connect people, which are our members.
Yep.
We connect them to the industry, to industry veterans and thought leaders so that they can learn. But most importantly, we connect them to other members like themselves that have core business just like them, where they can share best practices and learn from their peers.
Yeah.
We all sit across from tables sometimes and share best ideas with each other, but it's usually not a business that does the exact same work we do.
Sure.
So there's real power in learning from somebody else that's gone through the same pain points as you in the same business. So we connect people. The process is really what, the magic in what we do. We bring our members together with our vendor partners at meetings, where we'll have keynote speakers giving us some great content, but then we'll actually break out and do working sessions where they'll work on the business and then come back and do report outs so that not only the people in the breakout session can learn, but the greater good of the group can learn too. So it's kind of a greater good of the group model, so to speak. And then, the partnerships, that's the icing on the cake, so to speak. We bring vendor partners to our members, which gives them additional discounts from invoice, sometimes rebates on the back end, but basically improves their margin, improves their bottom line. And then for our vendors, we concentrate volumes for them and take market share from their competitors.
Right.
But you combine all that together though, and it's that long-lasting, meaningful relationships that all that creates. That's really the magic of the group. That creates the speed of transactions. You call vendor, get elevated treatment because it's not just you calling, you're calling, and it's all the other Ellipsys members that are calling at the same time too. So it's really kind of that whole ecosystem that's pulled together.
And I'll from the inside, this is what they don't get to see, right? From the inside, it's been impressive to watch, like just the amount of work and effort put into building that process, right? And building those systems and building the partnerships. So that's me passing you some flowers because it's been awesome to watch over the past year, and I know it's a lot of work has gone into it. And talk about that this past year. A lot. I said it right. A lot of work you've been doing a lot to get this group off the ground and get things moving. Where do we sit a year in? How are things progressing? What's kind of an update on what's going on with Ellipsys right now today?
Sure. So they're progressing nicely. To be candid, a little bit slower than we would like, but I think that's because we're putting the right foundation in place. When I came on board because of the powerful the nature of Nationwide Marketing Group and the power and resources behind that, but I also have to fit into that ecosystem somewhere. And while the majority of that ecosystem is residential, retail, outside of really true commercial work, it does fit with the res-commercial audio-visual integrators that are coming across. So we're growing a little bit slower, but currently we have 12 members and 12 vendor partners as well. But those vendor partners represent 18 brands. So we're growing slowly but surely, but we're growing the right way. We've got the right foundations. We know, what our swim lane is really, what our niche and the members that we serve in the community. So I think we're all pleased with the growth and where we're at today.
No, it's awesome, man. There's something to be said about too fast too. So I don't want you to, you have your mind on where you want to be, and I think that's the hunger in you too, which is awesome to see. So that growth, I'm glad you brought up numbers too, right? Because we've been talking over the past year about the drive to 1,000, which across the whole CI group, right? So that's our Oasis, Ellipsys, Ozione dealers coming together to achieve that 1,000, the drive to 1,000. Which, for you to accomplish your part of that, what is that big focus for you this year as you think about that initiative?
Sure. So, I guess first of all, lucky, I'm only 10% of the 1,000. So,
which means you're 12% over there.
Right. This year, two major focus. Obviously, we want to continue or three really. We want to continue to add vendor partners that make sense, fit the demographics of our membership and the right products. I'm going to pause.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question for me? Then I'll.
So So your focus for this year, big focus for 24 as we continue that drive.
As I mentioned, vendor partners. We also are establishing a partner council with a handful of those vendor partners that will help us determine initiatives for the next year. So we want to get that formed before we get too far into this year, because then we'll be working on initiatives for next year too late. Other big focus is membership additions, obviously. We've got a target of 50 members that we're trying to drive through for this year. We didn't expect a lot of that to happen in the first quarter.
Right.
So again, we're at 12. We're little under halfway, but we've got some work to do, but looking forward to that. And then the other thing is events. We will be putting on our first event in October. And really looking forward to that, because we're going to bring, not only the members and the partners together. It'll be our first time, but we got some really cool things on tap. We're going to talk about digital signage, which is still, the industry's struggling a little bit right now, right? We're not going to sit here and put our head in the sand and say everything's rosy. Economy is a little challenged, so things are a little tight. So we're going to try to identify ways for integrators to chase work that is in a vertical that's growing, which digital signage is, but also work that is recurring in revenue, and also work that's higher margin work. So we've got some things around that and around AV as a service, and then some great breakout sessions to work on business. Some of that will be driven by the dealers. We will ask our integrator members what they want to work on, and we'll put that in the meeting as well. That's
awesome. And you almost jumped ahead of me on, because you started to answer the question I was going to ask, so I'm glad your mind's working that way, right? The commercial industry, what we're sitting here prime time, got a lot of updates from across retail, CI, Oasis, Hank was able to provide some updates on his channel. What is going on in the commercial space right now? Where you mentioned digital signage, what other areas or focuses are there for commercial integrators today?
Sure, it's a challenge, right? And I wish I could totally predict where this was, right? Because I probably wouldn't be doing these podcasts if I could. But I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I talked to a lot of manufacturers, talked to a lot of integrators. Obviously, on the retail, we see what's happening on the retail residential side. The commercial industry is still just barely coming out of supply chain challenges, so I think it's hard to figure out what true forecasts are. But let's be clear about it. Most people are saying first quarter was a little bit down, a little bit of a challenge, but starting to see some activity pick up. And we're optimistic that the economy is going to have this kind of soft landing, and third and fourth quarter will be robust. Whether that happens, I don't know, but we'll all hope for lower interest rates. Hint, Fed.
Yeah, right. Get to work. All right. So on the commercial side, the thing that pops to my mind when I'm thinking about sort of how businesses flow, and for residential and Oasis members, clearly it's home starts and what spending in the home, things like that. I have to imagine COVID and everything that is the industry still sort of coming out of that as workers left the office? Did that have a big impact, or what sort of role did that play in all of this for the commercial industry?
It's interesting you mentioned that. One of the things that was great about COVID for me, or from my perspective, is that everybody adopted our technology that we
during
install
that time.
Everybody. I mean, my daughter came to me after me doing this for 18 years in the industry before and said, "Hey, you know what Zoom is?" I do actually. So it's fully adopted, and the factors of people going away and being remote and hybrid workplace, they're all factors that are important. I don't think we truly know the impact. Some places are forcing people to come back to work. Some places aren't. But what is true is you have a hybrid workforce, and you're going to have remote participants in meeting that need to have equity in the meeting if you want true collaboration. So we're going to continue to see that. Is it going to be with reduced facility footprints? So I think it's hit or miss. There's this one constituency of companies that are like, we want to support remote workers, and then there's others like, you're coming back into the office. So I think we kind of don't. We're going to have to wait and see. But the full adoption of the technology, that's positive, because I think we used to, it was almost a discretionary spend. It was like, I think we should do that, and now I don't know how much. Now it's, we need to do this. What's the right way for us to do this? Is it a simple huddle room? One UCC system? Do we need a big, broad, multi-purpose room that advertises everybody? Whatever it is, but the hybrid workforce and remote workforce here to stay
for sure
at some level. So
makes sense. Well, and I know too, the in the commercial industry, that part of it, the office space, is just one section of commercial, integration. So so you get restaurants and whatnot. Obviously, similar take, right, for restaurants. If people weren't able to go, were those businesses able to focus on improving their locations during that time?
That's interesting. There's certainly a lot of things that are happening. Touchless ordering and some of the things.
Going out to restaurants today, I'm using my phone to pay more, and not handing cards to server. You mentioned that sort of stuff, or even menus, like ordering on
You're starting
the
to
screens
see
right there.
menus that are just in glass, translucent glass and stuff.
It's crazy.
So yeah, the technology is certainly impacting those areas. And you mentioned revenue areas, right? Think about kiosks, right?
Right.
You see them everywhere. Not traditionally something commercial AV has done. So all of our technology is starting to now kind of proliferate out into the other avenues. So I mean, challenges now.
Right.
Economies, but I think the future's just as bright as can be.
For sure. I want to ask too, because we are here with Oasis and Hank and those members, and obviously the CEDIA, a big part of that industry. Doing a lot of work too on getting CIX and CEDIA together.
Don't forget to mention Prime Time. I mean,
absolutely.
I joined because of the resources.
Yeah, the show.
Here to show 375,000 square feet. I mean, this is a big show. A lot of people. I think we have 2,000.
It's incredible.
Members
and stuff. Some good numbers walking around.
So all that, I just wanted to
Hey, we appreciate you pointing that out.
It's for the mothership.
Look, throwing flowers right back. I see how it works. But I mentioned CEDIA. Obviously, they got a report that comes out every couple of years, state of the industry type stuff. They obviously, COVID gave the dealer, the custom integrator, the opportunity to refocus and revamp their businesses, right? And we had already seen sort of the rise of that term resi-mercial in that space. So what is the commercial take on that? Like, do they go the other way to, like, what sort of, the mindset from a commercial integrator? Do they look at resi-mercial? Like, where do they stand in that space or in that conversation?
There are some, but generally my experience, so there's going to be somebody that has a different one, but most commercial integrators will generally find somebody that they trust to hand over those types of installs. Somebody's doing something at the college, the president of the college wants them to go in and do their house. Some commercial integrators will do it, but many will find somebody
like an Oasis
member or an Ozion member or somebody that has the residential experience and hand that off. A little bit different for the resi-mercial guys. So some commercial guys get a little upset coming into my space. But resi-mercial guys were forced to when home start stopped and everything. But what I also notice is the resi-mercial market does not cross over into all the verticals within commercial space.
Yeah, for sure.
Generally happens to be like handful of verticals. House of worship is one, not the mega. Usually have large commercial guys doing the mega churches, but the smaller, more local, regional churches, those guys. Restaurants and bars, like you mentioned, which is a tie for digital signage. Not most people are just doing the install, not focusing on the digital signage piece. Come to one of our meetings, you'll learn more about that. And then amenity spaces, hospitality, which is kind of that's an interesting market in and of itself. And some commercial
integrators, almost like a home, right? Because the rooms that are like bedrooms, essentially.
And smart, usually it's smart TVs, smart technology. So you see a lot of growth of integrators that do both in those spaces, but not, if you're in true commercial, or you migrate towards that. I know a few integrators that started all residential and are now pure commercial. So they seem to migrate that way versus the other way. Yep.
It's kind of that light commercial term, right? Is that's something what you hear about?
It's probably a better term than resi-mercial, but for some reason the industry has adopted resi-mercial.
It got so buzzwordy that it just...
and we're contributing to it right
now.
now.
As we talk about it. Well, light commercial. We're gonna say we're gonna talk into our phones until Facebook realizes that we're saying light commercial, and then that's just gonna take over.
That works.
No, well, this was awesome to be able to catch up with you and to get the microphones. To be quite honest,
that was all. I hope Rick's watching this so he can see how happy he made you.
I know that made my life. No, this podcaster is a very happy individual, and in all honesty, it's been great to watch the growth of the group and everything you're doing, and hopefully play a small part in that too. So. Look forward to 24 with you and seeing the growth in Ellipsys and members and vendors added. So I know. We're excited to have you here and to continue to watch Ellipsys evolve.
I appreciate you having me on. Obviously, I'm a little less nervous the second time around.
Yeah, right. We'll wait till we get your third.
Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. And thanks again to Chris for taking that time and sitting down with us and offering a deep dive into what Ellipsys is, how it's grown, the work he's done, and kind of digging a little bit too into the direction that he plans on taking the organization over the next coming months, weeks, and years. So it's a journey that we'll continue to follow, and of course, check in with as well along the way as he gets set for first ever events coming up and all sorts of things that Ellipsys has coming down the pike here. So unique opportunity. Again, appreciate him, and as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast. And we'll catch you next time.